I'm Steve from This Week with Cars, and this is my 1996 Land Rover Discovery. I built this truck for Junkyard Digs Cheap Truck Challenge. Kevin and Mook from Junkyard Digs affectionately named this truck Popcorn because of the sound that it made during the event. Now, I got a lot of comments about how badly this truck was running, and I do think that it sounded worse in the videos than it did in person, but for sure it is not running correctly. Now that the challenge is over, I'm not constrained to how much money I put into the truck, and I'd like to get it running better. I really like this truck and I'd like to use it again. One thing I didn't really explain in my previous videos is just how bad a shape this truck was in when I got it. And now, being able to think about it for a while, I think that this truck may have been impounded. And I think that the person it was being impounded from sabotaged it. If you remember my very first video of this truck, someone had cut a bunch of the HT leads in various locations. One thing that I never showed you is that they had also cut the exhaust in many places. They didn't cut clear through the exhaust pipes, but they put cuts all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. I know they at least cut one of the wires going to the O2 sensors as well. There may be other wires that I still haven't found that they've cut. So now that I've spent so much time with this truck, I think it's time to take a closer look and see how well I can get it to run. There were so many comments about how many cylinders this truck was running on, and when I got it home from the event, I went to start it the next morning and it wouldn't start. So I'm probably pretty lucky that it actually ran the entire day. So what I'd like to do now is pull out each of the spark plugs and we'll find out how many cylinders this really was running on. Alright, I've got all of the spark plugs pulled out and I'm pretty horrified at what I found. I have these. This is the passenger side, or the right side of the vehicle for an American vehicle. And this is the front cylinder working its way back to the back of the engine. So the front one, you can see it's really coated in oil, as well as the third one and fourth one. They also had considerable amount of oil on them. But look at this one. You can see that there's something jammed in there between the contacts of the spark plug. Try to get that in the exact spot where you can see it. You can also see it there on the threads. It feels pretty gritty. I'm not sure what the material is, if it's stuff that came from the off-road park, but I think it's something from inside the engine. Maybe it's something because the engine sat for so long, but that is probably not going to be making a very good spark. Neither are these others that are just fouled with oil. I have also taken the anti-foulers off, and you can see that the one that had the stuff stuck in it, looks like that one got very hot. I think the fuel system may have been cleaning itself out, and either some of the injectors are shut, or possibly even now the injectors are clogged up. Moving over to the driver's side, things get even worse. These are also ordered from the front of the engine to the rear of the engine, and you can see that looks like all of these got hot. Look at this. The spark plug is completely gone. There's just nothing left of that one. This one, that you can see the tip is gone. Same thing with this one, as well as this one. So I think a couple cylinders, there was probably some oil that was preventing the spark from being as good as it could have been. And definitely on these cylinders could have been running real lean. Maybe they were running real lean only in the non-fouler. I'm not real sure, but possibly something was clogging up the injectors the longer that I ran it. I've already put a new set of plugs in the engine. These are Champions this time. This is all that I could get on short notice. Next thing I'm going to do is move on to replacing the O2 sensors. Looking underneath the Land Rover, you can see all the mud on everything from the off-road park is still on here. But under here, you can see that O2 sensor right there has been cut. There's another one up there. I can't tell. It looks like it might be okay. Over on this side, There's an O2 sensor, but it's hard to see. You have to look from this side. There it is, right there. Looks like that one could be okay, but I can't see up the line there. And then of course on the other side, there's this one right here. Here are the 4 new oxygen sensors. These are not Land Rover units. These are aftermarket units, which are a whole lot cheaper. There's not a lot of room up there for a standard O2 sensor socket, so I'm going to use one of these shallower ones. This one you can just hit with a hammer once you've slipped it on to break those things free. And you can also attach your ratchet onto it here as well. So we'll see how good this works. Should fit up there a lot better than a standard oxygen sensor socket. You can see the old O2 sensor right here. The wiring is cut on it. So I'll just put the tool up here where I can hit it with a hammer. There's the old sensor. Obviously there should be wires coming out of the back here, so I'll just have to get to the connector, slide the new one in, and then hook it up to where this one connects. Here's the new one. You can compare that to the old one. Let's give it a couple taps to tighten it up. The old O2 sensor on this side connects right here, right next to the transfer case. It's just a matter of unplugging it here, plugging the new one in. New wiring is connected. I can move on to the next one now. The wires on this side mount to the transfer case. They just slip onto that little bracket right up there. Should be mounted right there. You can pull it down to get it disconnected easier. I've already loosened the sensor on the passenger side. Get this one out. Get the new one in. You can see what that one looked like. Pretty dirty. Probably clogged up and bad. The O2 sensor on the front passenger side connects right behind the engine. You can see the connector right there in the middle of the screen. And the connector for the driver's side is right beside it, also behind the engine. Here on the driver's side, I've taped the connector for the new sensor to the old sensor. That way when I pull it up there, it will pull up the wiring to the back of the engine where it'd be really hard to reach down here and get it otherwise. That way when I disconnect the old sensor, my new wiring connector will be right there with it. I did get a couple other items that I've now installed. This is the throttle position sensor. This goes right there. This is so easy to replace, I wasn't going to show you how to do it. I also got a mass airflow sensor. Just clamps in right there. It's really easy to replace. The mass airflow sensor on these vehicles is very sensitive, and it's a good chance that this one was not functioning 100% correctly. I also have a full set of new injectors for this engine, and I could make an entire video on just the injectors, and that's what I'm planning on doing. So we'll have to wait till next time to put these in. But before I end this video, I want to start the engine up and see what it sounds like now. I have a feeling the disco is going to sound a whole lot better than it did before. I don't know if I ever showed you this, but I've been using just a Land Rover key blank as my key. If you remember in the first videos, you can just turn the ignition with a screwdriver. It was broken when I got it, so that's what I've been using. Let's try it out. Well, I'd say the engine sounds a lot better. You can see all that oil coming out of the exhaust. I'm sure a bunch was coming out of the cylinders and making its way into the exhaust, and now that it's actually running, it's finally burning it up out of the exhaust. That's it for today. If you want to see more of my adventures both in the garage and out in the world with this truck, comment below and click subscribe.